Hi guys, let's get into a reading. Thank you for your likes, your comments, your subscribes, and to those of you who have booked a personal reading with me, please keep in mind that these are general messages, so do not take them personally. Take the messages that resonate and leave the rest behind. If you would like to book a personal reading with me, you can find that information in the description box below. Let's get into it. This is a reading for the energy surrounding the Lionsgate portal. What message do you have for the collective at this time regarding the energy surrounding the Lionsgate portal? Help me to articulate a clear and concise message in order for it to be received in the way that you want it to best be received. Help me to see what it is that I need to see to get the message across as clear as possible. And help me to deliver any messages that you deem worthy in order to serve your highest good, for the highest good of humanity with harm to none. What message do you have for the collective at this time regarding the energy surrounding the Lionsgate portal? What message do you have for the collective at this time regarding the energy surrounding the Lionsgate portal? Give me two more. Oh. Okay. So there seems to be, for one, the energy of you now being in this space of what you ask for is what you get, right? Your voice is a very powerful tool for manifestation. Whether you speak, whether you write, whether you sing, your words have a very powerful frequency that you really know how to use to transmute energy, right? You know how to recreate cycles. You know how to close close things out, or bring an end, or transform things that no longer fit who it is that you are trying to become, or where it is that you're trying to go, right? You have this it's giving like catch and release, right? Where you know how to take something, nurture it back to health, and then release it back into the universe, to the world, so that it can express whatever it or exist in the way that it was meant to, right? You don't feel the need to hold on to things, right? You have become very comfortable, very balanced in the space, and knowing that everything that is meant for you will present itself to you in the right moment in time. And if it's meant for you, it will not pass you up. And in the moment that it is no longer meant to serve you, it is your responsibility to have the discipline to release it back, so that it can exist in the freedom that it is seeking, right? You have become so comfortable with change. You've become very comfortable with transformation, right? You have become very comfortable in the space of, and that comes in the perception of not holding on so hard to the past, and not being so focused on the future that you're not actively working on it in the present moment, right? Because if you're so focused on the future that you're not working on, or you're not actively taking steps to get towards that direction, then how can you bring your manifestation to life, right? But if you're so focused on holding on to things of the past just because it feels comfortable, just because you perceive it to be safe, right? Because again, keep in mind, in the last reading we had a talk that just because something feels familiar, just because something feels comfortable, that doesn't mean that it's a safe space, right? It's just somewhere that you have it's just a space that you have existed in for however amount of time, right? That you needed to feel that you don't need to move, because it's almost as if, like, again, the devils you know are better than the devils you don't, right? That's how the saying goes, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. But again, you've become so comfortable with this existence of transformation, with this existence of change, whether that's changing yourself, whether that's changing your perspective, changing your idea, changing your expectations, changing your direction, your path, right? Changing your relationships. You just become so comfortable with knowing that nothing in this world is constant except for change, right? That's the only constant in this world. Everything, life is an everlasting cycle of life and death and all the changes that happened in between, right? And that's what you have accepted. That's what you've learned to become comfortable with, right? Because you can't hold on to your baby phase and expect to exist in that space as an adult, right? The two just don't align well, right? Because they're not meant to. You're meant to grow. That's just, evolution is a part of life, is a part of existence. But it's also too knowing that, like, you becoming comfortable with change has also showed you that you have the ability to create change, right? You have the ability to bring transformation, right? To be an aid in that process, to encourage growth, to encourage success, to encourage the release of all things that keep us stagnant, right? You got to clip your dead ends if you want a healthy head of hair, right? It's just natural. If there's a part of you, if there's a part of the way you function, if there's something in your habits that don't fit what it is that you're trying to create, then it might be time to make some changes. And that's just a part of being honest. It's just a part of being truthful, right? Clarify comfort. Clarify comfort. Balance. Yeah. Okay. There's a transparency in the way that you speak, right? In the way that you have too, it's like you've just become comfortable with truth, right? Whatever that looks like in the moment, right? Because there can be multiple truths, and the truth can change based on the perception that you're observing from, right? But you've just really entered into this space where you are living in truth. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to fake. You don't have to try not to see something for what it is. You don't feel the need to hide certain things just to hold on to things that maybe have you've just had long standing with, right? Again, that sense of comfortability, that sense of familiarity. You don't, if that resonance is no longer aligned to your path, then that simply is the truth. And you don't have to ignore that. You have really embraced um the success that you experience, right? And it's not necessary. It is success, but it's more so a sense of balance and peace, right? Where you don't have to force something, right? You don't have to overwork yourself to try to balance the scales of life, right? You don't have to over explain to try to make someone see your perspective, or you don't have to fight for something when it's, you have clear observation of the actions that are being displayed. And this is where your success is coming from. It's that sense of balance. You have to keep your heart, right? Your heart posture should be as light as a feather, right? Meaning you don't hold on to anything too heavily, right? Too many expectations. You don't hold on to too much resentment. You don't hold on to too much anger or anything like that, right? You simply accept freedom for what it is. And if that means existing in it, or if that means releasing it, you have a true understanding of how to position yourself in those moments to align yourself on where it is that you see the light that you have for yourself. I hope that makes sense how it came through, right? You're not someone who is comfortable with fabricating anymore, right? Fabricating in a sense of forcing connection to anything, to anyone, to any space, to any experience, right? If you are in a place where you don't feel, and now that does not mean that you're not open to new experiences. That does not mean that you're not open to new ways of life, right? But if you go and you experience and you observe that it does not align, then you reposition yourself, right? That's truly living in freedom. And you don't hold any ill will towards that experience or whatever it is, right? You know, you allow life to exist in the way that it is. And that's as simple as it can be, right? A bird is going to be a bird. Hold on, because okay, we're back. But by allowing yourself to really exist in this space of freedom, in this space of living in the balance, you really have it frees up the space for you to focus on you and what it is that you are creating. Now, that does not mean that you don't have concern for others. It just means that you're not forcing it to the point where you are trying to change other people for the benefit of you, right? You allow them to be who they are, or the experience to be what it is, right? And you don't try to force change on it just to create your own sense of fulfillment, right? You hold yourself to a more um I don't know, I don't know, it just gives you really release the expectations of life. You really release the expectations um of how things are supposed to be, and you experience them for what they are, and you align yourself accordingly. And that in itself has created so much peace, right? And you really placed yourself in within a certain standard and quality of life that is specifically tailored to you, right? You have really created the quality of life that you desire to live, the standard of life, right? Whether that's the standard of your career, the standard of the hobbies that you participate in, the standard of, the type of money that you earn, the standard in it's just the experiences that you have, the relationships that you cultivate. You have really aligned and cultivated the life that you desire for yourself just by allowing yourself to experience, to forgive, and to release, right? Clarified destiny. The Ten of Swords, the Page of Wands. Yeah, because it's almost as if like your life, what you desire in life is stability, it's honor, it's loyalty, it's grace, right? It's long standing. It doesn't align with withholding, right? You have this the Six of Pentacles. It seems like you're really in this space where you don't align with passive energy, things that feel fleeting, things that don't feel solid, things that don't have a firm holding, right? You've placed yourself in this position where the type of care that you give really serves not only you, but everything around you. And so if you observe that you're in a space where you are forcing connection in whatever way that may be, right? Whether you're forcing a passion, excuse me, whether you're forcing a passion, whether you're forcing a career, whether you're forcing an expectation, or could be forcing a perspective or a relationship of some kind. If you are at the point where you feel like you're having to force it, then that to you, in the way it feels like you have to release it in order for it to feel that sense of freedom, right? That it's seeking. You don't hold things to the expectation that you desire, right? You hold yourself to a certain standard and you align yourself to things that match that frequency. But if something is no longer, now that does not mean that you're not in the space of helping things grow as well, right? Because you are a nurturer. You are the type of person who does cultivate, who helps and aligns things as well. But you don't force it, right? If you're encouraging, if you are, trying different things or trying different ways, right? And it just doesn't seem to be working. If there's too much resistance as opposed to collaborative effort, then obviously there is a sense of freedom that is not being felt on either end. Therefore, the connection is no longer in alignment. And it must be, again, like, it's like setting the caged bird free, right? I want to say that came out in the previous message that I posted. You again, like, it's a balanced effort, a balanced exchange. Because it's like, that like holding on to things that no longer align, or holding on to things that are no longer on the same frequency, it never turns out well. It ends in a cycle where things are too broken or too hurt to be fixed, right? Even if it can be repaired, it never sets the same way that it was in its original form. Does that make sense? If you break a bone and you are in a cast for however long, months, weeks, whatever, it will eventually heal, but it will never go back to its original state, right? The damage is already done. And so in order for you to prevent that from happening, from burning bridges that you know how to walk over them and keep moving without feeling. Now sometimes it's necessary to burn a bridge, but you yourself have placed yourself in a position where you know how to reposition yourself in a way that you don't necessarily have to burn the bridge. You just go on, continue on your path towards things that align yourself, and that creates so much distance where the bridge is not necessary to be burned, because they can't, whatever it is, can't necessarily even reach where you are, if that makes sense, right? I hope this is coming out in the way that it's coming through. The Ace of Pentacles, the Queen of New Beginnings is what I just sensed. The Queen of New Beginnings. Or you could be a king, right? It depends on your person. There is no gender in tarot, so do not take it personal. The Four Wands and the Ace of Pentacles. Yeah. The King of Cups. You have aligned yourself with the things that reflect the desires, the wishes, the life that you desire to create, right? You are someone who consistently plants seeds for new life, for new growth, right? You enjoy the celebrating, right? It doesn't mean that you don't experience bouts of, sadness, because it's life, right? Frequencies ebb and flow. One day you're up, one day you're down, but you have learned to manage yourself at an even position to where your highs don't feel so drastic from your lows, right? If you consistently maintain an even point, your lows won't feel so devastating, and your highs won't feel like something that you will forever be chasing, right? You know how to, and that's essentially the frequency of just remaining grounded, right? Placing yourself in a position where you are consistently ready for new life, consistently ready for new growth, to give birth to whatever it is that is meant to come through in this existence for you, to serve you, for you to experience, for you to have and to hold, right? For you to be, right? For you to connect to. There's such a beautiful balance in who you've become that it's almost scary, because there's so much depth, right? But there's also so much. It's like you truly exist in the space of being multidimensional, right? You don't take one form, you don't take one shape, right? You integrate all of who you are, all of what you have learned, all of what you have experienced. And you have learned to, one, not let that overinflate your ego, but also you don't let it diminish your character. There's just like a very sense of clarity that you have within your mind, your body, your soul, right? You have learned to intertwine. You've learned to interconnect. This is such a beautiful reading. There's a trueness and authenticity, for lack of a better word, right? Because so many people use that word, but it's overused and misunderstood. Let's pull 4 cards to close out this message. Let's get 1 card for what we can learn as the major lesson surrounding this message. 1 card for the opportunities we can create surrounding this message. 1 card for what we can meditate on as the focus of this message. And 1 card for the new cycles and habits we can innovate to contribute to our growth and expansion surrounding this message. This Lionsgate portal is for sure like what I just saw. Let me see what it is. Okay, it's the MGM lion, right? In the previews of movies or screenplays or whatever, you have the MGM lion in that circle that is kind of roaring, showing its power. And that's kind of the frequency that this Lionsgate portal is having. It's like you have this confidence to use your voice, to speak, right? To be who you are, to show your pride, to show your courage, your strength, right? But also still remaining firm and knowing that you don't have to use force in places where it's not necessary, right? There's a really grounded sense in your confidence, in your reality, in your self-respect, right? In your life, you've just really created this balance, this peace, right? Where there's no competition, there's no fight for anything. There's drive, there's passion, there's inspiration, there's motivation, but you don't have to fight for your freedom, right? Because you exist in it. You actively work towards it. It's not in a place of it's to a place where maybe at one point in time you did have to fight to get to this point. But in this moment, in this new cycle, you're just existing in your courage, in your beauty, in you. You're just living as you are. 1 card for what we can learn as the major lesson surrounding this message. There's so much power in just being free, right? Knowing that you don't always have to need, right? We're in as a society, we're in a place of overconsumption, always needing new, always needing to refresh, right? Always needing to have more, as opposed to just observing what it is that you have and accepting the fact that maybe that's just what you need. You don't necessarily need more. You just have to learn to accept and to experience in its fullness, right? And in order to be in that space, you also have to learn to appreciate, right? Life, currency. You also have to learn to have like a sense of respect for currency, right? In a way that that cycles, right, happen with your time, with your knowledge and awareness, right? In learning new skills and learning new methods, whatever the case may be, right? 1 card for what we can learn as the major lesson surrounding this message. I try not to make this one too long because I do have somewhere to be. Temptress with focus at the bottom. Yeah, so there's no forcing it. You don't have to fake it, right? And look, here's the power in just the power that you have in creating the life that you desire and aligning yourself to the life that you wish to create in this reality, right? Not having to force anything, but just allowing things to be and positioning yourself for what is to come, right? 1 card for the opportunities we can create surrounding this message. Beautiful message, Magician with the whispers, right? You have a way of communicating, right? You have a way of observing. You have a way of, again, this is the Magician is somebody who uses the resources they have to create new, right? You have a stable base But from that stable base you've created, with those resources and those tools, you can manifest whatever you desire, right? The magician only carries four tools. He has the sword, the fire, the earth, and the water, right? And from those four elements, you have the power to create all that exists in totality, right? All that exists in life, right? And so again, with that, you just learn to be more appreciative. One card for what we can meditate on as the focus of this message. Saint and wise man. Remaining connected to yourself. Meditate on you. Consistently check in with yourself. Consistently check in with God. Consistently check in with your ancestors, your spirit guides, right? Whoever it is that you communicate with personally, to receive that guidance of truth, receive the clear pathway, right? Because you there does need to be an element of checks and balances. If nobody here had a superior looking over them, the world would be pure chaos, right? Everybody would be running rampant, thinking that they run the world, right? So you do need to have that sense of, again, consultation, right? To remain grounded, to remain pure, right? To have a clear strategy and a clear sense of direction, right? So meditate on, again, keep a connection and a consistent check-in with yourself, so that you don't get too far ahead, but you also don't dwell too much on the past. One card for the new cycles and habits we can innovate to contribute to our growth and expansion surrounding this message. Prince and focus, right? So again, this is keeping your motivation up, keeping your inspiration up, keeping the focus. This seems like it came back out twice, because I want to say it was under the card with the magician. But this is you creating new spaces just to have new life, right? Because if you think of light, if you think of knights, right, they are in the place, they are in the position where they have earned authority over self, but they still have to, they haven't, how can I put this into words? They haven't necessarily gain the position to rule others, because they're still in this position of observing knowledge, of observing wealth, right? And that's kind of like the energy of like keeping yourself grounded. That doesn't mean that you haven't reached the empress or the emperor phase. It just means that you have to be mindful to keep yourself, to remain a student of life, right? No matter how much you think you know, there's always more that you don't know. Right? But that is the message that I have for you guys. I hope that it resonates. I know that if you made it to the end of this video, you have found something in it that is worthy and valuable to you. Thank you for watching. Bye.